So in today's video, we're going to be looking at Manic Panic in the color Voodoo Blue. It was a little bit of a fiasco opening up the container, so I have some blue on me. Don't mind that. So my swatches are human hair swatches, but the only one that's going to be virgin hair is the number 4 black swatch. The rest have been chemically dyed or bleached at some point in their existence. My swatches are labeled 1 through 12, but that is not synonymous with hair levels. I'll be doing like close-ups and pictures near the end of the video, so the numbers just help us keep track of each swatch. 1 is pink. I kind of wanted to see if it would turn more of like a purpley blue over the pink. 2 is gray. 3 is a natural red. 4 is black. And then from 4 to 11, we have a range that goes to platinum blonde. And then number 12 is like a toned version of number 11. So to start, I'll be taking the dye from the container and I'll be putting it at the top of each swatch. Some people do like to dilute their dyes, so I'll do a diluted version at the bottom of each swatch as well. Please keep in mind, everyone's hair is different, which means everyone's hair could take dye differently. So please just use my video as a reference as to how this could possibly turn out for you. Also, I've noticed that monitors can definitely change how a dye looks, especially the undertones. So please keep that in mind as well. For the diluted section, we're going to be doing a 6-to-1 ratio today, and that is 6 parts of diluter to 1 part dye. If you're unsure what diluter is, the easiest answer I can give you right now is that it just basically lightens the color of the dye, and if you're wondering what I just use a plain white conditioner. So I'm going to let these sit for about 3 hours. I will then rinse them out, and when they're dry, I will meet you back here. The number 1 and number 2 swatch actually look very similar to each other. They both pull very cool tone in comparison to the more blonde swatches. Toning your hair will get you a slightly more cool toned result as well, but it isn't quite as cool toned as like the pink and gray swatch. So for comparisons, I wanted to start with Manic Panic. I've not officially done Atomic Turquoise, but I think that would be my first choice if I did have that option. After Midnight sounds like it wouldn't be similar, but for your guys' sake, I thought I would just compare it so you can see the slight similarities in the two. This is comparable to number 12, number 11, number 10, and number 9. So firstly, I don't think After Midnight is quite as pigmented as the Voodoo Blue. I'm not like a I don't know chemistry and colors and stuff, but from what I've noticed is that cooler tone colors, especially like cool tone blues, tend to not be as pigmented, and the colors with green in them tend to be a little bit more pigmented, so that could be why. Now when I did the After Midnight, I was still doing two separate diluted parts. So this is diluted and then this is even more diluted. So I thought I would throw a piece of paper on top really quick so that it's a little less distracting. Okay, so hopefully you can see on camera, but After Midnight doesn't seem to run quite as dark and is a little bit more blue looking. Especially in comparison, I feel like the After Midnight makes Voodoo Blue look even more green. The reason I wanted to compare these is actually more so for the diluted sections. So when I diluted After Midnight, I noticed that it did start to pull a little bit more of like a greenish blue. So After Midnight isn't so cool tone blue that once it fades, it'll stay looking blue. It may turn like a greenish blue. I think the best way to combat that would be to tone your hair first, because our tone swatch here, even though it does have a very, very slight greenish blue look, it definitely leans more cool tone, especially compared to the Voodoo Blue. You can see that this is more cool toned, but it's a little bit harder to tell on the 11, 10, and 9 swatch. To me, the diluted section almost looks like a less pigmented version of Voodoo Blue. So if you're thinking that After Midnight is going to be a super cool tone blue, that's not quite it, but it is a lot more cool tone than something like Voodoo Blue. The other comparison I wanted to do today is from Arctic Fox in the color Aquamarine. This is comparable to number 12. This is comparable to number 11. This is comparable to number 10. And this is comparable to number 9. So again, I was diluting two separate parts for these, so I'm gonna put another piece of paper on top. So far from the dyes that I've done, Aquamarine is actually going to be the most similar to the Voodoo Blue. I feel like they look the most similar on the 12 and 13 toned swatch, and funny enough, I feel like on the blonder swatches, the Aquamarine actually looks slightly more green, which I find very interesting because I always thought Aquamarine was a blue, and I'm not saying it's a green, but I didn't realize it had that much green in it, I guess. And then I did want to compare the diluted sections as well. So the middle diluted section is probably going to be more similar to the bottom of Voodoo Blue. And honestly, I feel like it's a lot harder to tell the difference on the diluted section. They both have that like greenish blue look. And again, they look the most similar on the toned swatch here. I do have to say again that on the blonder swatches, the Aquamarine does seem to pull slightly more green. But you know, honestly, if there was two different people who dyed their hair with both of these, and let's say they both have like the same porosity of hair, right? They were standing away from each other, there's a good chance I would think that they would have the same hair color. So at this point, it's really just preference. Maybe if you like one brand more than the other, or one is more easily accessible for you. They're pretty much dupes for each other. So now I'd like to get into the before and after clips. Those and anything at the end of this video will be done in natural lighting. And I'm sure as you know, but recreating the exact same environment with natural lighting on different days can be a little bit difficult. So if anything looks slightly off, that is probably why. I hope this video helped. If you have a request, I do have a link below to a Google form you can fill out. Just remember, I only do dyes that do not test on animals. Thank you to my patrons, and thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.